Losing time, I'm fading fast. I just wanna make it last. Try to let go of the past. I close my eyes, embrace the black. Sleepless nights and headaches stack. Restlessness to hell and back. What's my purpose? What do I grab? A slippery surface, a heart attack. And sometimes you just gotta believe there's something that'll give you relief. There's something that'll have what you need. What you need. We're broken, it's tragic. We're not all elastic, but maybe there's magic. Believe you could have it. And I know of sadness, the anxious and panic, the infinite vastness of all that is blackness.
Hello and welcome to another episode of The Warrior Within, a new journey. I'm your host, Jaime Bennett. We have a very special episode tonight for you all, but before I introduce the guest or talk about the guest, I must say that viewer discretion is advised. You all are, of course, allowed to make comments and you are allowed to ask questions, but please be sure to be kind in your comments and questions. I would really appreciate it. This guest is very, very inspiring. I'm very honored to have this guest on my program. Cosmos Creative Television is also honored to have this guest on our program. Chris Tomlinson is the guest, a very inspiring individual, and he's going to be talking about his story as well as inner strength and how he's been able to help others with his story. I am very honored to introduce Chris Tomlinson. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being on this show. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.
You're welcome. So basically, for the people in the audience who has not heard of your story, has not, witnessed your story, because, there is a news broadcast about your story. Would you mind sharing your story with my audience members?
Yeah, sure. So in June of 1986, in Florida, I was outside playing and I had snuck off into like a utility shed, I guess you can call it. And it's where like the hot water heater is and you store your stuff. So I got in there and my mom, she was watching to the window, and every parent knows that like a second is literally like plenty of time for kids to do anything. So I had gotten out of view for literally a split second, and when she looked back, she couldn't see me. So she came outside, tried to find me, and before she could find me, I had gotten into the utility room, and I'm curious about everything. So I'm getting through everything, and I had pulled down a gasoline tank, and it didn't have any gas in it. Like, it was like one of those ones you feel like a lawnmower or something with, and it didn't have anything in it, but the fumes were in it. So when it knocked down, the thing opened up and the fumes filled the little room, and the hot water heater in there came on, and the pilot light that's in there ignited, which caused all the fumes to ignite and engulf me in flames. My mom got to me, and took a while, but she finally got me out, because every time she pulled, she was just getting skin. And finally she got me out and got the fire out. Neighbors had called 911 and everything. And where we were, the ambulance couldn't get to us. So they had to actually land a helicopter in the college across the street from where we lived and take me in the helicopter and rush me to Tampa General, I believe it is, in Florida. And they told my family that I had a 1% chance to survive, because there was just no way. I had over 97% of my body burned with 3rd degree. Some was worse, which sometimes they call it 4th degree, which literally like down to the bone and everything. So they told my family, there's no way, just, get ready, get prepared. And the next day, I was still alive. So they did what they could do, and miraculously, I survived. And that's the beginning of my story. That's the gif of why I look the way I am, or why my story is the way it is.
Well, thank goodness that you're still here with us. Thank goodness for that. Wow, what an incredible story. Like I don't even want to imagine what you've been through. I know that I had watched I believe the news cast of your story, and how many surgeries you have been through. Gosh, I wouldn't even want to imagine that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been through, I believe it was 13 when I asked my mom, and at 13 she said she lost count around 200, and I didn't stop getting surgeries until I was 19. So, yeah.
Oh my goodness. That's incredible. How do you gain inner strength? Like what helps you to keep pushing forward?
There's a few things. One of the things is my family. I have a really good, loving family. We always have each other's backs. I mean, we're not a perfect family, like no one is. So we have our issues now and then, but anytime we're always helping each other. So it's my mom was a huge part of it, because she basically was my nurse when I wasn't at the hospital. I'd have to come home with bandages and stuff, and she had to learn how to do all that stuff. She had to learn, like, just in case if something looked a certain color, she had to know what to do with it, what type of bandage, what ointments, whatever. And so she had to learn to become a nurse pretty much. And she was there through every surgery, literally. As soon as my eyes opened, she was right there next to me, and she would just be there to help with everything. And my dad was a huge, like, he wasn't able to be at the hospital as much because he was working all the time trying to, supply for his family, while his wife was home taking care of me. And so he was working all the time, but whenever he did, like, I'm not saying he worked 24/7. I got to see my dad, but he was more supportive of, I don't know the word, but he was an encourager, I guess you could say. So when I don't remember all this. Like, I'm remembering from, like, my parents or friends or whoever saw. And so what I was told is that when I first was burned and I had to learn how to use my hands the way they were, my mom would want to help with everything. She'd want to step in and be like, "Here, I got this," and she wouldn't do anything. And my dad was like, "You can't do that. He's got to learn how to adapt to what he has, so that when we're not around, he knows how to function with us." So he was a huge encourager. Every time something would come up, he'd have my back and build my encouragement up. My mom too, but they encouraged me in different ways. So they're a huge part of it. And I have good friends, good support group. I am a man of faith, so God is big time for me. And I pray a lot. So anytime something happens, I'm like, "All right, you got this, God. I don't know what to do."
Yeah.
And it happens. It works. So, but I guess that family and God is like the biggest thing. And I know that there was a point in my life where I was very negative about everything. I let everything get to me, and I didn't even want to live. I didn't even want to breathe. I wanted to die. I tried to commit suicide a few times, but I never was able to go through. Either I couldn't do it, or people were there to stop me. But I was so negative and just so dark. And then just one day, I just told myself, "You got to stop, man. Nothing's gonna improve when you focus on just the negativity, because when you focus on negativity, you're just gonna produce more negativity." So I was like, "You got to start looking at things positive and just look at life around you. Like, yeah, rough things going on, but look really look at what's going on. And it helps. There's things when we're going through things, it's like we have blindfolds on and we can't see all the good that's actually happening while bad things are happening. And I have to remind myself to step back and just look for the good in everything.
Yeah, that's about all we can do, really. Like, I've been through times in my life where I was kind of in the darkness and just had no hope. But you surround yourself with your friends and family and your warriors. They're your warriors, and they help you get through it, and that's very, very important. I'm going to ask the audience if any of you have any questions. Please be kind, but you are more than welcome to ask Chris or myself any questions, and we will try to answer them the best way that we can. Just put it in the comments. How do you use social media to help others? Because I really appreciate that you do that.
Yeah, so I use my documentary, or I use the different interviews I've had throughout my life, and I like try to share it with people on my Facebook or YouTube or Instagram. Um, I got into TikTok. Somehow my channel blew up, even though I'm not a dancer or anything, but people just liked hearing me talk for some reason. So my like within I think within like two no about a month and a half, it blew up to like 50,000 followers, and I was like, I don't know what to do with this. So I would just
That's
go in there and just talk and just try to help people and encourage people, because I know that when I go through things, it helps when someone can come up and just be like, hey, I know you're going through, or even if they don't come up and say, I know what you're going through, but they're just like, they give you an encouragement word. Even if it doesn't have to do with what you're going through, somehow it still helps you and encourages you to look at the circumstances and get through it or something. So I like to go on and just share what I've gone through in life and just share different moments in life that happen and just say, hey, this is going on, but we got through it and it strengthened us. We're stronger now. And so I use that. And recently, I'm not meaning to 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 drop a thing in there, but I recently released a podcast that I started, and I had a bunch of people tell me that they enjoy listening to my voice and I should get into like audiobooks or podcasts. And I looked into audiobooks, but it was a lot of stuff you had to go through for that. And then I was like, well, maybe I could do a podcast, but I kept pushing it off. So it literally took about a year, and finally I built up the courage to do a podcast, and I released like the first episode like a week ago, and tomorrow I'll have the next episode. And I just want it to be a place where people can go to and just relax and chill and just listen to stories, and not just, I don't want it focused on me, because I want it to be, encouragement and help people. So most of my stuff I'm going to be talking about on there isn't going to be about me. It's going to be about, well, I mean, it's going to be about stories, but like I'm going to hopefully have people I can interview. So I have people lined up. So hopefully I can do all that and just have a place where people have another way of hearing my stories to help. Because that's all I want to do is help people. I want to know that, I want to be able to know that once I am at this point in my life where I look back on my life, I want to know that I've helped people. I don't care. I don't care about getting money. I don't care about being famous. I just want to know that my story was used to help someone else. And then their story, they shared to someone else, and it just kept going and going. And people just were encouraged and have hope. So those are the ways I share. It's just the stories and videos on all the social stuff. And I had was scared to talk to people before, and I was like, well, I'm never gonna go out in public and talk to people because I'm too scared of this. So I was like, well, let's just do it on social media, because social media, I can't really see you guys. So it's just pretending like I'm just hanging out talking to myself or a friend. So it's just like I could do that. So I was like, I could share this stuff, no problem.
Yeah, I can understand that. I totally can relate. Like I was telling you in the green room before we even started this broadcast, I'm nervous every single time I do an interview, and I am who I am, and I'm just a bundle of nerves all the time. Um, my bosses at my day job just kind of laugh about that. They're like, you would never notice. And I was like, oh, trust me. It takes me a lot to be in front of people and to talk to people. I'm just a nervous person. I think MM had asked you a question and you pretty well already answered it. She was asking if you could tell us more about your podcast.
Oh yeah.
So I guess I will turn around and ask where we can find your podcast.
Oh yeah. So I have my own website. It's www.teatimewchris and wchris.com. And then you just go there, and I have a newsletter I put out every week. And then there's a link that it says podcast, and you can go there. You can either listen to it on the website itself, but it's also literally on anything else. You can listen, like it's on Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, everything. You just type in Tea Time with Chris, and it should come up. And if you just go on the website, I have a link for all those. So if you have something that you'd rather listen through, like Spotify, like I use, then you can just click right on the Spotify thing, and it opens the podcast up for you. And then if you just follow it or whatever, it should automatically tell you every week. I hope to do release one every week, every Monday. So
That would be great. That would be great. I think you do have a radio voice. I come from a radio background. I've not always hosted shows like in this format. I like you. I'm like, I can't see the audience. I'm gonna do radio, just radio.
Right.
I don't want to be in front of a camera, so I can totally relate to that.
Right.
What has been the highlight of helping people through social media? Like, is there a profound moment that has happened in your life?
Yeah, there's been a few. I've had people email me that I've never met, and I still to this day have never met. But I've had people email me and tell me that they ran across either my video or someone shared a post from my Facebook or whatever, and they ran across it, and it stopped them from committing suicide. And that was a big deal to me because I don't know how my story is affecting people unless they tell me. But sometimes I'll be sitting there and I'm like, man, am I doing enough? Are people hearing this? Or am I really helping people? And then I'll randomly get an email or a Facebook message from someone I've never met, and they're like, hey, you've stopped me from trying to commit suicide, or you helped me. I remember one lady, she's going through cancer treatments, and she just hated life, and she just hated going through all that. And she said, I heard your story, and it just inspired me and gave me strength to keep going for treatments and everything. And I was blown away by that because I don't know what it's like to go through cancer and all that. I don't even want to imagine what that's like. And that's something that I always tell myself is that, yeah, what I went through may have been horrible, but there's always people out there who've gone through worse or something that I have no idea what it's like. And so I always try to approach people that way of like knowing, like, I don't know what they're going through. So don't jump at them. Don't judge them or anything. Like, just understand that they could be going through anything and just listen. So I just like hearing when people I don't know, or even people that know me, will send me a message and be like, hey, I saw this and it really helped me, Chris. And that's the biggest thing to me, is just knowing that I've helped someone just to keep going, to not end and just keep going. So
Yeah, that's really important. I think that it's important that you've taken something, horrible that has happened to you in your life and turned it into something beautiful. Like, tragedy could become something beautiful. And what I mean by that is, you have the ability to let people realize that they are not alone, that they're not facing these traumatic situations or these situations in life alone, that they have somebody that they could always talk to, and that they have somebody who's going through something similar, if not worse, than
Right.
themselves.
Right. And the other thing I got through it is I've been able to meet other burn survivors, because growing up, the only burn survivors I knew would be like a random kid at the hospital that'd be like my roommate or whatever, and that's the only time I knew them was while I was in the hospital. So I didn't know anybody else outside while I was growing up, pretty much my whole life. I didn't know anybody else like me. So I felt alone a lot of times because I was like, I don't see nobody else like me. And then when I started sharing it, I had people reach out to me, the other burn survivors, and they're like, "Hey, we see you. We, let's connect and stuff." And I'm like, "Wow, I got that connection now with people who know exactly what it's like to go through what I'm going through, and it's awesome to meet people like that."
Yeah, it's very important. MM's asking, can you tell us what happened with Reddit when you posted and people stepped up to help?
Oh yeah, that was a while ago. So there was a moment in our life where we were homeless and we had nowhere to go, and we had to go into a shelter. And while we were there, there was Reddit has this section called, I hope I get this right, AMA, I think it's called AMA, and it's like Ask Me Anything. And people would just go on and they take a picture holding a piece of paper, whatever, with your Reddit name, so they know that it's you. And then you just leave it open, people to answer or ask you anything, you just answer it. So I didn't expect it. I was just sitting bored one day in the shelter because we had to stay in this room, and I was like, okay. So I just was like, I'm bored. I'll do this and just interact with people. And yeah, it went nuts. I had a lot of people comment and ask me stuff, and I answered. And they, I didn't share I was homeless at first, and then they found out, and then people were like, "Can we help you?" And I couldn't take what do you call it? I couldn't take direct donations because of being in the shelter. They were very strict about your income, so I had to be careful with what I used. So I used the money to go towards um, paying the first Latin security for a place, because in Massachusetts, where we lived at that time, they want everything when you move somewhere. So they helped with that, and then at that time I was going to therapy for my arms and stuff, and they helped pay for the gas to get back and forth, and it helped a lot because we didn't know how we were going to afford to get a place once we found one, and a bunch of people literally from all over the world just stepped up and just helped out of nowhere. And I think it got up around like 8,000 within like 2 days, and I was just like, okay, wow, this is great.
That's awesome. That's wonderful that people were able to step up and help. So it shows you, the nature of people when something like that happens. Renee Yaworski is asking, do you have any advice for people struggling financially or with homelessness?
I'm not sure. I know that when I was homeless, it was very, very rough because you don't know what's going to happen. You're very unsure of everything. And what got me through was my family, of course, and my faith. And I just had to make sure, just like I said before, to stay positive and know that everything's going to be okay. It's going to work out, and just look for positive and what the current situation is. Like, yeah, where we were wasn't the greatest, and we had to keep a close eye on my kids, and they couldn't go out and play or anything because it was really rough where we were. But we had close family time. We had time where we played games together. We had times where whatever. Even if you're on the street, like I can't tell you what that's like because I don't know what that's like. So I don't really have great advice for that. But just if you can, try to find a good support group. Try to find people that are going through something like that and they can help you get through it. Financially, I would suggest what helped is, for me at least, was when I needed help was I got help from my church. I got help from other churches too. They would help with, they have like different things, like different organizations set up that you can contact the church and they'll give you the organization's name, number, all that stuff, and they can help you get certain resources. Um, I know there's one friend of mine who was homeless, and I told her that, and she called, and then some church, I don't know what church it was, some church actually put her up in a house and helped her get towards going into her own place. So there's that option. You can do that. You can, yeah, I don't know what the best thing, I don't know what exactly, oh, that's exactly like. And financially, I struggle financially. I think everybody does, really. But it's just do your best, man. That's all I can say. Is just do your best and just try to find something good in it, in whatever you're going through. I'm sorry, that's not the best advice, but I don't know.
No, it's fine. I think that's good advice. My aunt always said it was mind over matter, like just everything's mind over matter, and
Yep.
I take that advice to heart. Unfortunately, my aunt had passed away not too long ago, but I always take her statement, to heart, and I'm gonna live with that for the rest of my life.
Yeah,
I think mind over matter is the best way to approach things. Manifest stuff. Just put your best foot forward. That's
yeah,
usually what I say.
yeah.
MM has another question for you. What was the best part for you and the girls when you moved into your house?
Oh man, everything. Just having a house was like, I was mind blown because I always never pictured myself to be in a house. I always like, I'll always be in an apartment. And I was like, whatever, that's fine. At least there's a roof over my head. And when we got the house, I was speechless. I didn't know what to say because we had been, it had just been me and my girls up and down the East Coast for like over 7 years trying to just stay at a place. And then it never worked out. So then when we walked in the house, and I was like, all right, girls, 3 bedrooms, pick your rooms. Just go and pick your rooms. And I was just so happy to know that my girls had their own rooms. Like they'd never had their own rooms their entire life. Even before we were homeless and stuff, they had to share a room. And I had promised them that one day I would give them a house with bedrooms. Even though subconsciously I was like, I would never have a house. But I was like, there's hope. I gotta hold on to this hope. And I just just having our room, just being able to have our own beds that we could just go in. I had my own bed for once. I haven't slept in a bed for so long. So when they brought in my bed and I looked at it, I was like, thank God. I lay in this bed and not a couch or something. And my girls I just loved watching them, just seeing how happy they were to just know that we were all together and we finally made it. We finally got here to our own home and just it could just be us. We could just do whatever.
That's got to be an incredible feeling. I know that feeling. Me and my husband, I have 3 kids that live with us, and we were in a very small apartment, and they didn't have their own bedrooms. And like when we moved to our house and we were able to finally get a stable home, and my daughter got her bedroom, like she picked out the color for her bedroom, like she was so excited. She says, my only thing that I want when we move is a cat and a bedroom of my own. And I was like, well, honey, I think that's, reasonable. That's
Yeah.
definitely reasonable. That's got to be an incredible feeling.
Mm.
Like that's so wonderful. Renee says that hope is such an important emotion, and that it is for sure. And then Brittany says you kept hope alive, and how amazing that is. Most
Yeah.
definitely. It looks like MM's asking lots of great questions here. How is your health going right now?
Right now it's going good. I was going through some trouble a few months ago. I had a really bad infection in my leg, and in I being stubborn, I thought I could take care of it myself because I was so used to it. And it got worse, really worse. And it started spreading throughout my leg and then to my other leg. And then my entire body just swelled up where I couldn't move. I was having trouble breathing. Like, it was horrible, so bad. And finally, I was like, I need to go get this taken care of. I went to the doctor, and my doctor was like, yes, you need to go to wound care. It's badly infected. So they put me on antibiotics, went to wound care, started taking care of it. After, I think, like 2 weeks or so, I started seeing my body. I was starting to get my energy back, and my swelling was going down. And I was able to start moving again. And then the wounds were getting better. And then finally, like, I still got the wounds now, but they're not as bad at all. Like, they're healing. And my doctor thinks I only have maybe 2 more weeks left to go. I only go once a week, so he says only 2 more visits, and I should be good to go. But after all that got taken care of and the infection got out of me, I was like, oh man, I feel like a new person because I could get up and walk from room. I was using my wheelchair to literally go from one room to the other, and it's like just a room right next to my room. But I couldn't move. I couldn't even turn my body because I was so swollen. And when it got out of me and I was moving, I was like, oh, this feels awesome. I was just walking from room to room just because I could. And my kids were like, Dad's feeling better. I was like, yep. And they knew I was because one of the things with my body is because of the burns, I don't have the pores like everybody else is. So I get hot all the time. Like, I am hot 24/7. So my AC's got to be on all the time, which isn't good for the electric bill, but whatever. It's got to be done. And so when I got sick, I was cold all the time. And that's how people know when I'm sick, because I get cold, because they're like, Chris is never cold. So I would have the heater on in my house, and the girls are like, it's so hot in here, Dad. What is going on? And I'm like, I don't feel good. And they knew right away something was bad. So as soon as it was gone, the AC was back on. They were freezing again. So they were like, Dad's good. So,
Well, it's good that you're healing.
yeah.
That's good. Like I've dealt with infections, and that's definitely not any fun. That's for sure. Um, it looks like Bob had said a statement. Hello, Bob. Thank you for being here. Home ownership is so liberating and empowering, and that we can create the aesthetics of our own space without dealing with a landlord. Um, yeah, most definitely. Uh,
I don't own my home. I do rent it, but I have it through Section 8, which is a godsend because I could not afford a home at all because all I get is SSI. I do have a job now that I do. Like, I work from home, but it's not enough to pay for a house. So thankfully I got Section 8, but my landlord's amazing, and like, it's pretty much like I own this house. Like, she's just like, whatever, just do what you want. And we do. And if something comes up, I call her and she sends someone out and they get it done. Like today, so they sent someone out and getting fixed. So it's awesome. I'm glad I have the landlord I have because I've had other landlords where exactly what Bob says. You don't want to deal with a landlord, and it's just like, ugh. And
yeah.
they don't do what you need, and they just let things go. So thankfully, the house I have, even though I don't own it, it feels like I own it because I have such a good landlord. So yeah,
Oh, that's good.
yeah.
That's always a plus.
Oh yeah,
Um, I've been in those situations, and then I've also been in the situations where you feel like you can't even hang up a picture.
oh yeah.
And
I've been in those apartments before. Definitely, you're just like
oh, I
sit there and you're like, I don't know where to put anything because I'll get in trouble.
just leaning against the wall again.
Yep. Yep.
um, let's see. Mostly comments, like people aren't asking questions, but we will pop some of these really awesome comments up on the screen. And then let's see. Bob says this. Yeah, there's definitely some challenges when you're renting a place, but
Oh
thank
yeah.
goodness you have an awesome landlord.
Yeah. And I get that sometimes landlords get bad renters. So I get that sometimes some landlords are just in a bad spot. So they treat everybody bad because they don't know if you're a good tenant or not. So,
Yeah,
so thankfully, I have a good one.
that's good. It looks like Brittany has a question for you. What is your favorite thing to do with your kids?
Oh man, a lot. I'm a big kid myself, so I do all kinds of stuff with them. Uh, I'm into like everything kids are pretty much, and like video games and watching cartoons and Disney shows, movies, all that stuff. But both of my kids are so different though. So both of them, I do different things with. It's like my oldest, she's into like space and science and all that stuff like I am. So we will do stuff like that. We'll do little science experiments and stuff. I used to. She hasn't had one recently. I got to get her a new one. But she used to do these little science kits I would get, making like either a volcano, or she had one where she made like the end of a toothbrush and you attach the circuitries to it and it vibrates the motor and then it moves across the table and everything. And we really connect with all the science and we really get into all that stuff. And my youngest is into video games and she can't stand science, even though when I bring up something about space, she's like, "Oh, cool. What's that having to do with?" And I tell her, she's like, "Oh, science. I don't want to hear it." But I can connect to her with video games, and she is hilarious. Like she can come up, she's quick. Like she can come up with the funniest thing instantly, and you're just left like, "Whoa, what?" And you just start laughing. You're like, "She came up with that." So we both connect with our humor because I love putting humor into everything. So we'll play games together. We'll laugh and joke all the time, and I can do that with my oldest too. She's got the humor too. So we're a very comedic family. We like to laugh all the time and just to really do silly things just to pass time and connect with each other. And that's the big thing. I want my kids to have memories so they can look back when they get older and be like, we had a blast growing up. And that's what I try to do. And I know when to be a parent, and I know when I have to be serious, just step up and be like, hey, and be a dad or whatever. But they're good kids the majority of the time. So everything I love doing with them, all that stuff. And going on trips, I love going on road trip because I love to drive. They don't like road trips as much because they hate sitting in the car for so long, but I love doing it with them. So I love doing that and just coming up with random ideas to do things with them. So they do everything with me because it's just us. It's just us three. So we're like, all right, so we got to do this today, and they're my sidekicks. They know exactly what to do and kick in the gear, and we just do it. We conquer everything that comes. So we're a good team.
It's good that you have that kind of relationship with your kids. That's really, really important. And
Right?
laughter is the best medicine. I think
Yeah.
that, you gotta have laughter in your
Right.
life.
Big time.
MM says, do you like your prosthetics or prefer not using them?
I like it, but I'm so used to not having them that the majority of the time I don't use them because I'm used to it. So like I have that hand that you see over there. I got that last year, I believe it was. Yeah, and it's been 36 years. I've not had a two hands, so it's like sometimes I can do things better without it. So a lot of times it doesn't get used, but if I know that like if there's a bunch of bags I gotta carry, that helps because it can put it, go around the handle, close it, carry it. I'm trying. It's taking me forever. I'm trying to learn the guitar, and that would be what I would use to strum the guitar. But we're trying to figure out a way that I can do it because I'm not going to be able to hold it like a regular guitarist. But I think what I'm going to have to do is go by inspiration of I can't remember his name right now, but he was a guitarist and he was blind and he would play it the guitar on his like on a table or either in his lap like in front of you like this. So I'm thinking I could start doing that. So I'm slowly, very slowly learning the guitar with it because I'm very impatient with it. So I get frustrated because I'm so used to without it, and then I start having these thoughts of like, oh, I got this hand, so I can do this, and then it doesn't happen. So then I'm like, no, I'm better without it. I don't want to do that no more. So, but it's useful when I need it, and it looks cool because it's a robotic hand. How cool is that? So,
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think MM was saying something about that earlier. She's like, Chris is so cool because he's got a hand just, sitting back there hanging out on the desk.
well,
Um, she also said that she has another friend who's the same. He spent his life adapting, and it frustrates him to relearn things with prosthetics. And I've heard that from numerous people who have had to have prosthetics. Like, they prefer not to use them because they get used to not using them.
Right.
What process do you have to go through to get a prosthetic?
So with that one, it was very new. Like, I didn't know anything about it, and I had gotten into trying to get a prosthetic years ago. I mean, years ago, and my therapist, actually, it was during that time I was homeless when the people helped with the paying gas to get to therapy. I was going to therapy, to train my arm to get used to using the prosthetic. So my therapist was trying to do everything she could with all the medical insurance, try to word things correctly so they can accept it or whatever. But eventually they just dropped it and said he doesn't need it. He's been without it for so long. It's not medically needed. So my insurance wouldn't cover it. They gave me a hook, like a thing to put over it with a hook. And when I push my arm out, it opens the hook, and then when I close it, and it didn't help at all because it gets in the way. But I mean, I know there's people out there use those and it helps them, but for me, it didn't. It just was worse for me, so I never used it. So I just gave up on trying to get one. So then last year, I got interviewed by Special Book by Special Kids on YouTube, and they did a GoFundMe, and it raised a lot of money. And a friend of mine had told me before that happened. A friend of mine said you should look into like 3D printing a hand. And I love technology. Like, I have the mind for technology. Like, I can build computers, everything. I love technology. So I was like, that'd be awesome if I could afford a 3D printer and 3D print my hand. But then I was like, that's very expensive. That's very expensive, and I don't have the knowledge for all that. So I was like, I'll look into prosthetic places. So I started researching them, and a lot of them were expensive. Like, I mean, like, I don't know how people can even put that price and expect people to get these things. But so I was like, this is way too expensive. So then there was finally one company I got on, and I don't want to get their name wrong because I went through so many of them. Man. Yeah. Anyway, it'll pop in my head later. So I found them, and it was a lot more affordable. And I talked to Chris, he runs the Special Book by Special Kids. I talked to him. I was like, hey, is there any way we could use some of that money to help pay for this prosthetic? And he said, absolutely. That's what it's there for, to help you. So I told the people, I contacted the company, and I told them, hey, I told them my whole story, told them what's going on. I was like, is there any way that I can't pay for it, but I have someone else, can help pay for it. So they said, absolutely. They said, but also we want to tell you that we have sponsors that are willing to help pay for half of it as well. So it's like, okay, well, if they're willing to, that'd be awesome. So like, okay, like, we can't guarantee it, but we have sometimes. I was like, okay. So then, like, literally the next day, they emailed me, said, we got a sponsor. They're gonna cover half of it. If you can just cover 4,000, you're good. You're good to go. So I told Chris, and he said, yep, we got that. Sent it in, and so they got a hold of me. Said, all right, you got that down. We got that down. They send you a kit. They come to your house. Well, they don't come to your house, but FedEx drops off a blue box with their logo on everything on it, and you open it up, and it's got like an iPad in it, and there's like a scanner attached to it, and it's got a program on it, and you just basically just push scan. And my daughter, it was funny. We had to clear out my whole room. I had to lay in the middle of the floor, and my daughter's holding it and like going around my arm as I'm holding my arms up in the air, and we're laughing as we're doing it and everything. So finally we get it, and it looked awesome on the screen. It showed my whole arm, my hand. That was cool. So I send it back to them, and then they give you like, it looks like a keychain, but it's got a whole bunch of different colors, like sample colors on it, and you pick your skin color. I was holding up to my skin, and I'm like, I have so many different colors in my skin. How am I going to do this? So I'm like, well, this matches, but then this matches. And I'm going through all these ones. And my daughters are both helping me. They're like, maybe this one, this one. We're going through. We finally got the closest one. And you send that back. And then they're really responsive. Like, as soon as they get it, they contact you. They tell you, we got this. We're working on this. They walk you through what they're doing. They go on. A therapist, like a physical therapist, comes on, like kind of like this, like a call, and they talk to you and they go over what they have with the stuff you sent them, and they talk about what is going to happen next, and they try to prepare you for what to do at home, like like move the muscles, exercise them, get used to having something on that arm, and then eventually they send a socket in the box. They come with the same box, the blue box, and it's so protective and they look so cool in there. It's got all these like this really fancy styrofoam, black styrofoam that covers it. And they give you 3 sockets, and I put it on my hand, test it, and finally I found the right one. You tell them which one works, send it back. And then I want to say maybe 2 or 3 weeks later that I dropped the box off and my hand was in there. And they give you a booklet in it to go through steps, and it connects through Bluetooth on your computer, and it goes online, and it connects to it, and it what's the word? It calibrates it to your fit, and then it tells you muscle movements to do, and you have to do all this stuff to get it to your fitting. It took me hours to get this thing to realize my movements, because I thought I'd have it done, and then I'd take it off and I'd put it back on, and it wouldn't be in the same spot as before. And it's like, you're not wearing this. What's going on? I'm like, no, I got to do this again. But
no.
I went through it. I got it working to now where I can put it on. It works right away, and it was awesome. And then you just talk to them again, and they have you do stuff on camera, and they walk you through, and that was it. And now I got that hand and can use it whenever I want to use it.
It's
It's got
incredible.
fake tattoos on it and everything. So
It's incredible.
for me to make it my own, they're like, it's your hand, make it your own. I'm like, all right.
Put some tattoos on it. Yes, most definitely. Decorate it a little bit. Here's a statement that MM said. She said, please tell me you call your prosthetic hand thing because she will love you even more.
I don't have a name for it yet. I'll keep that in mind.
Yes, most definitely. Awesome. MM's funny. Is there anything else that you would like to mention before we wrap up the program?
Nothing I can really think of. I can't think of nothing.
She says, well, you do have a name for your prosthetic hand now. So.
No, I do.
If anybody has any questions, now is the time to put them in the comments. Yeah. So I was going to ask, like, the question that Brittany had asked you earlier, like, what you like to do with your kids. I was going to say, what do you do in your free time, like, when you're not hanging out with your kids? I know that, that's what you're doing all the time, and that's awesome.
Yeah, when they're like at school or they have a life outside the house, like they have friends, they're teenagers, so they don't like to hang out with dad as much as they used to. But they have friends, so yeah, there's plenty of times that I'm home by myself, whatever. I like to hang out with my dog majority of the time. She's my shadow, my best friend. And I like to play video games and write poetry and stories. I come up with random story ideas just sitting there, and I'm like running this scene in my head, and I'm like, all right, we gotta write this down. Don't forget this. But I always forget it. But occasionally I get them jotted down. I like music. I love music. So music's playing 24/7. It'd be playing right now in the background, but I have it off right now. And I would just zone out, literally just zone out listening to music for hours. I like to research a lot on like science and space, mostly space, because I'm obsessed with space. And I love just learning what's out there because it just blows my mind every time they find other planets and other formations and all this stuff that's out there, and I'm just like, that is amazing because it's so big that we just can't fathom it, and we just cannot fathom what happens on these planets. And when I hear about like planets raining diamonds and iron and all stuff, I'm like, that is horrifying but amazing at the same time. Like, I want to see that, but I don't want to be there for that. So, but it's
Exactly.
just, I will read stuff on science all the time, and being a tech geek, I'm always doing stuff with tech stuff. I will randomly take things apart and put them back together just to know how they work. I will do stuff online about it. Right now, I'm really into like all the AI stuff and creating new things with all that because it fascinates me, and trying to make friends with them before they rise. So, and then so I do all that stuff, and just I try to figure out something to do. I mean, I suffer with depression, so there are times when I'm alone, it will get to me, and then I have to really force myself to, Chris, go do this, or Chris, think about this instead. Like, you don't dwell on that, man. And times I break down and cry because I'm just like, I can't deal with it, and just start crying because past memories or just being lonely or whatever. But I I'm better at that now because I'm very used to it now. Because after you've been alone for a while, you get very used to it. And now I'm at the point where I'm like, if I did have somebody, I don't know how I would be because I'm so used to just doing my thing now that I'd have to be like, wait, you got somebody else now. So, but I'm not saying I don't want to be with somebody. I would love to find love again, but I'm not like out there looking for it because I'm like, when it happens, it happens.
Yeah,
But
it'll find you when you least expect it. I
yeah,
used to be really, really depressed and lonely myself, and then, met my husband when I least expected it, and
that's
the
awesome.
rest is history, I guess you would
Uh,
say.
it took me a while to get to that point though, because I really struggled being alone. I
Yeah.
really, really did. But I think everybody does though. I think everybody, if you don't have somebody with you, it's part of life. Like, humans are meant to be with people. We're meant to have people to talk to. We're a social species. We need that. Like, a baby doesn't live unless they're touching their mother. Like, they
Yeah.
have to have that. We have to have that connection with people. So it's normal to feel lonely, I guess. But I don't let it get it to me. I try not to. So
That's good at least. And I mean, I think that to me, like the soul is the most important part. That's like the beautiful part to me. Like, I see a person's soul before I see that their outer appearance. That's just
right,
how I am. That's how I've always been, and that's how I teach my kids to be. Like, my daughter doesn't see people for the way that they look. She just appreciates the soul that's in
exactly,
them.
exactly. That's my kids. Thankfully, are kind of like that too. Like, they don't look at people by their appearance. They like to look at people how they act and how they are, and just accept people. That's what I try to do. I accept everybody no matter what. So
That's a good way to be. And I appreciate that you try to help other people through social media and through your story. I mean, you have a very inspiring story and a very beautiful soul. Um,
thank you.
you're very welcome. MM says, is there a way people can help you if they would like to help you? Like, I was going to ask that myself, if people wanted to send you gifts, or if they wanted to help you in any way. Is there a way that they can do that?
Yeah, but I don't really like. I don't like taking things from people. I have so bad at that. Like, I have people tell me like, Chris, people want to help, let them help, and they're like, you're too stubborn. Let people help. But yeah, I mean, I have a PayPal. People can do that. Or my biggest thing right now is my podcast thing. Is it does cost me money. It does cost to my website costs money. It costs money to host it. It costs money to have the name. It costs money for the software I use. It costs money, and I'm using what I get from work to cover that. And I've had people tell me to do a Patreon, but I don't want my podcast to become a job become money. You know what I mean? I want it to be more like just a hobby, something fun to do that helps people. But I know I do have a donate thing on my website that links to my PayPal, and I have it. I want to just use whatever is given through there to go towards my podcast. Because if I had, not a lot of money. If I had like $100 a month, I'd be all set. I wouldn't have to worry about the cost of everything in my podcast to keep it going.
Yeah.
But other than that, prayers would be very appreciated.
Prayers are always appreciated and helpful, that's for sure. Well, thank you so much for being on this program. I really appreciate you being a guest, and you're so inspiring, and thank you so much for answering the audience's questions. We appreciate it. And that's pretty much it. There you have Chris Tomlinson with his inspiring story, and just very, very inspiring, and I really appreciate that you've been a guest on my show.
Thank
you. So until next time, I have to say to my audience, love, hugs, and blessings.
Losing time, I'm fading fast. I just wanna make it last. Try to let go of the past. I close my eyes, embrace the black. Sleepless nights and headache stack. Restlessness to hell and back. What's my purpose? What do I grab? A slippery surface, a heart attack. And sometimes you just gotta believe there's something that'll give you relief. There's something that'll have what you need. What you need. We're broken, it's tragic. We're not all elastic, but maybe there's magic. Believe you could have it. And I know of sadness, the anxious and panic, the infinite vastness of all that